Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Calm Mind Podcast. 14 is a magical number. It's double the lucky number 7. And with me, as always, is the lovely True Green 7. How you doing, man?
That's smooth. I like that one.
Thanks.
If you guys, we should. Every episode, I regret just not doing face cams because I want you guys to see sometimes like my face whenever Toby says something awesome. Or
I just wowed and shocked you with my mighty maths. I can double 7. How are you doing this week, man?
I'm better than last week, definitely. I mean, did we talk about just my low point last week, or did we have a guest last week? Or what?
No. You just wanted to talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion, if I'm saying that right.
I was definitely having like a down period. Like it was definitely a valley.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But then I was also watching Neon Genesis Evangelion, right? I ended it at least, so that like intertwined with the feeling of like bitterness. So yeah. I didn't know if it was because of my actual problems in life or because of me watching this piece of fiction. But yeah, nowadays, I mean, my emotions are tied to how well my channel does, unfortunately, when I just released a video that did like a little too amazing, so I'm a little feeling better, so it sucks.
Wait, you said it did a little too amazing? Yeah,
it was like, it was the best performing video of the year, at least the last 365
But then
days.
that's great.
But it's more like it makes you feel awful, where it's like the previous week was one of the worst performing videos of the year, and I just felt terrible. And like it wasn't like I was feeling terrible because of the video. It was more just like it was the straw that broke the camel back, and
right. I see.
I felt worse than ever that week. But then it sucks when the next week the video does amazingly, and then you realize, your emotions really are just tied to the channel, and it sucks that I feel better now just because my video did better.
So hold up. Your deal right now, if I'm hearing this right, and everyone in the YouTube comments can tell me if I'm hearing this right, your deal right now is that you were sad when your video was doing bad, and now that your video was doing good, you've gone, it's only because of the numbers. So there's no winning.
Yeah, it's like this is not a stable source of happiness. So like the next week, now I'm anticipating, next week's not going to do as well. I'm going to be less happy. And then also, it just also does mean that my actual problems haven't been solved just because my video did well. My life isn't better in general. It's just the video did well. But also, this video that did well is part of my best performing series. So it's not like, the channel's doing better. It's more, I released a video that I already knew was going to do well. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
So the next video, there's still like a huge chance it's gonna bomb because it's not part of this huge series. It's the same feeling of the whole thing, money doesn't buy happiness, where it's like, I am financially stable, so I don't have to worry about money, but I'm still very not happy. And it's the same thing where it's like, you have money doesn't mean I'm happy. So it's the same thing. You have a video that did well and your channel is doing fine, at least this week, doesn't make me happy. It makes me fine. It makes me happier than the previous week, but it does not change the general problems that I have, which are just mental stuff. They're not things that just material objects or just views will change. And that's the bittersweet feeling where it's like, I know emotionally I feel better, but logically I don't, because I know that this is not what will make me happy. Views and money and stuff like that.
It's good to recognize that. I mean, that's definitely a therapy conversation, I think that's like you get to the root of like, okay, why is my happiness attached to a number? My suspicion and I have to preface this, zero practice in being a therapist or a counselor, is that it's tied to like the success of a report card in school, or the success of like a teacher saying, well done, good job, you got an A, you got a 100, you did good, because it's like literal feedback. But the problem with those systems in school is that they tell you there is an A, there's an A star, there's a 100. But in real life, when it comes to money or views or subscribers, there's always a bigger number. There's always more you could be doing. And so when you tie your happiness to those numbers, and it's like, it's good, but it's not like the best it's ever been, or it could be better, or I don't know what next time's going to hold. And like, it's not practical because there's like no ceiling to it. It doesn't matter how big you get, you'll always be upset.
This is interesting because first you said that I'm not a therapist, I'm not qualified, but like, for example, this is not a thing that my therapist has ever told me, and it's just cool to have a different perspective on that same problem, because I mean, that's what having friends, that's the benefit of having friends, is just different perspectives and, just talking it out, even if you're not a therapist. So for example, I think you're actually kind of correct, where it's just like, a lot of my life, a lot of my successes are the material stuff, the things that you can show proof, the grades, the, let's say, art. You can physically see if you're successful or not, or money, or the channel. Like, those are things that you can physically see if there's an actual. It's tangible almost. While all the things that I do lack in my life, like, let's say, social life, friends, relationships, stuff like that, those are things that, like, you just feel. You feel when you're successful in that. It's not like people are saying, "Wow, you have a lot of friends. Good job." Like,
there's no like boss of social life who comes along shakes your hand and goes, "Well done, Ron, you did it." That you have exactly the right amount of friends.
And ultimately, you come to the realization that it's like the material stuff is not what makes you happy. It's those intangible stuff that actually makes me more happy. And I'm working on that, but it's like I didn't beat the final boss of that yet, and that's why I am not happy from just getting good views on a new video. But it's interesting because, like we said a billion times, and people have said it a billion times, where these podcasts are basically like therapy for men, basically. And you just like released a couple of videos on your other channel. What? Say the name of the channel again, because is it Toby Hill?
Toby Chill.
It's Toby Chill.
Because my name is, my brother is really annoyed about this because I'm Toby Hill, right?
Yeah.
My middle name is George, so it's Toby G Hill. His is Christopher, so it's his middle name and surname makes Chill.
That's funny.
And I was like, oh, that's really funny. I could be Toby Chill. And every time I bring it up, he's like, no, you're Toby Gahill. It's not right.
I'm Toby Chill.
I'm the Chill. Well, he's not Toby. It'd be super weird if me and my brother were both called Toby.
He's like, I want Toby as well.
No, I want Toby as well. Yeah.
Toby Chill is a great like channel name. But like, I was wondering, what are the kind of things that you can like talk about on this channel versus what you'd rather talk about on the other channel? Like, why do you, let's say, post a video about what's going on in your life there, but then, I don't know, we rarely talk about that here? Or
I'll tell you the difference, I think. And first of all, there's nothing that I would talk about on Toby Chill that I wouldn't be comfortable talking about here on the podcast, actually. Like, I see them as the same kind of outlet, because in Toby Chill, that's me, that's Toby the person. On Birdkeepertoby, that's the kind of caricature freeze frame that only films when Toby's happy and it's good to go. But the version of me here this is more me, the person again, but speaking from the point of view of the producer of Birdkeepertoby, which sounds Birdkeepertoby sound like this really like fictitious thing. It's not. It's just a case of like it is but one facet of my being, as I'm kind of learning more and more in my own therapy. So I'm pretty much happy to talk about anything here. And the worst case scenario is you say to me, "Hey, can we talk about this?" And I go, "No. I do not want to say that." But you should ask me, because you mentioned on past podcasts about worrying about like what to ask, but there's nothing you can ask me that's going to make me feel like, I'm just going to say, like, let's dodge that.
So in a recent video, you talked about, I guess, just going through therapy. You talked about it a lot recently, because that's just a new thing in your life, and you're learning the wonders of therapy, I'm assuming. And you talked about various traumas. And again, it's like you said, like, I don't know what is okay to bring up, because, I mean, these are new feelings that you're feeling. So we didn't even bring it up just in our personal lives. We barely talk about it because they're just new. You're learning new things about yourself. But you're also learning that, like, I don't know, maybe you're going to definitely have to explain it, but like, you felt like you still have this mask that is over you?
Right. So this is what came up and it was really eye-opening for me in our latest session. So I've been seeing this therapist now for the last like 5-6 weeks, and I think she's great. She's the best person I've ever spoken to in terms of therapy. I've tried 3 or 4 before, and I always find that they don't give much back. But what I'll find is, so I'm a bit of a workaholic. Well, no, I'm very much a workaholic. I'm actually maybe even addicted to work, and so when I'm not on video, I'm like doing stuff to do with the channel, right? And as life has done over the last decade, it's thrown problems my way. It said, here, have, heartbreak, and have like friends pass away, and have like friendships go wrong, and have all of these things, have problems with food, whatever the question may be. And it throws it all in my direction, and then I go, oh, that's unfortunate. I'll be sad about it for a little bit, and then I'll just start like moving on and bury it under work. And I sort of joke with the ethos of, well, if you don't laugh, you cry, and life's short. And hey, I have it better than most, right? Like I've got it. I'm very aware that I've been born into a very specific kind of part of the world where I have so much going for me. I'm not part of any minority group that I can think of that's being marginalized for any reason. You know,
Nice.
I'm comfortable. I got money. Yeah, good going, me, you know? And I lucked into all these things. And YouTube in particular, while it is very much about how much work you put in it, it's also, there is a huge element of luck that plays in, and they don't negate each other, right? All of this is to say, so I'm just going to, like, when I face my issues, I belittle them, and I sort of go, this doesn't, you know? And so I push it down, and I keep on running around, as I tried to describe in this video in a very impassioned way. Every time a new problem pops up, or even a potential new problem, it's not even a problem yet, I'm running around trying to put out fires. I'm trying to like, hey, let's just deal with that. And when it gets a little bit too much, I go to therapy, and the therapist says, you can't keep putting out all these fires. Like, that's not sustainable. And I go, yeah, but then that's why I come to therapy. And she's like, yeah, but you're not talking about it. You're just saying you'll come to therapy, and you're talking about these stresses, but like, you're not getting to the root of any of the issues. She's like, look at you. The house is on fire, you know? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And we were talking about my issues in relation to weight specifically. And we were actually was the kind of straw that broke the camel's back on this one. And I made a joke about like, well, you know what? I'll just be fat and happy. Like, that's what I'll do. You know, I'll just be a jolly fat guy stereotype, and it'll be fine. Ha 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 ha. And I make that laugh. And she's like, kind of gives a chuckle back, and she looks at me and she goes, like, you know, I keep doing this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you keep doing this. There's this resistance, right? And she's like, it's called the gallows laughter. Well, you're laughing about kind of dark things and kind of sad things. And I get the sense that actually there's a part of you that doesn't want to be fat and happy. You would want to be the shape that you want to be, and like that's fine to want that, but like you're deflecting, you're sort of using humor to kind of deflect and be a barrier. Yeah. And she said, you know, I think you have this presence about you, Toby, that makes us want to laugh along with you, and like I think, you know, like just effectively take off the mask, right? Like I think I need to call you out on that. And the moment she said it, it was like I sank in my chair, as if a literal mask had just dropped off my face, and behind the happy clown face, there was this like sad, well, like, yeah, of course I'm miserable. The last 7 years have been really amazing, but also really difficult. And she's like, right, yeah, I know. I've spent the last sort of 5 weeks telling her about all the big things that have happened over the last 7 years. And I'm just there like, of course I'm sad, but then what? I'm scared. Like, what's the alternative? Is the alternative that like, because I've developed this framework of the world, and I've sorry, I'm rambling like so much. I've developed this framework of the world, and I've made, in my opinion, great sacrifices as well to live this Birdkeepertoby life, and I'm scared that. Okay, so I'm sad about a number of things that have happened along the way. What if I find out that this life is wrong? What if I've chosen the wrong path? What if like, or not, I know I've chosen the right path, but what if the discovery is actually this thing that I fight tooth and nail for, that I'm a workaholic for, is actually somehow wrong? Or worse than that even, like what if I find out that my friends are the wrong friends? What if I find out that my partner's the wrong partner? I don't want to discover that. Yeah. Like if that's the case, and I don't think that is the case, and she's sitting there going, well, I can't promise you what you will or won't find, but like, we're not going to get any further if you can't kind of listen to that childlike voice inside of you that says, well, actually, this is what I want. And yeah, I am quite vulnerable, and I have been hurt, and I am scared. Let's talk to that person. And I'm like, right, okay. Okay. So I came home, and she said, look, the big part of this is self-care. I said, sure thing, I'll go home and not work too hard. And then I literally couldn't stop doing things until 11:30 in the evening, because every time I had a free 5 seconds and I was like, I should really sit and think about nope, I can do this. And I just find new jobs for myself to do. And so it all came out in this kind of well of like, well, if I'm not going to sit with myself and just think these things through, maybe I just need to record them, say it, and turn it into work, so that then I can express it. And now I've expressed it, I had a bit of a breakdown, and the last 2 days I've done nothing. A much needed nothing. This is the most work I've done.
So you're giving context to the whole, like yesterday you told me I just sat around, did nothing, watched movies, played video games.
Yep. And I'm going to try and do nothing for the next week if I can. Genuinely, I've sat and just been watching films. I've watched 6 films in the last 2 days. I've watched a bunch of series, or I've been watching series. I've been playing games. I've been pottering around and tidying. So the house is the tidiest it's been. But I've not got this go-get-em attitude for the day because it's not sustainable and I need to work out long term. But yeah, sorry, that was a lot. So
I mean, you were describing the video, I guess.
That's kind of where I'm at.
You're doing a redo version of that video. But that's what's so crazy about therapy is that you basically get two opposite things out of it. You get the feeling that, oh, I'm not alone, or I'm not the same. This is a shared feeling that other people do have, and that my therapist has experience dealing with. Let's say, but then also the opposite, where it's nah, what you're feeling is not correct, but what you're feeling is unhealthy, and you shouldn't be feeling that, and you should learn to not feel that. And for example, half of what you said, I totally empathize with, and I'll tell you what I did. But the other half, I'm whoa, we're completely different in that aspect. So for example,
yeah, what did you connect with?
I connected with. Here's what's funny. I forgot. I mean, you said a lot.
Okay, well, what did you not connect with? What did you what was stood out?
What I didn't connect with was, do you procrastinate?
I can do, but not
everybody
often.
Everybody procrastinates.
Yeah,
but I'm not a workaholic. I feel I work. People from the outside may seem like I'm a workaholic. It's more that I procrastinate too much that I just waste time, and then I feel I need to work.
How much time a day do you reckon you waste doing stuff others that you shouldn't be doing though?
Oh, I'm just probably 3 hours of my days watching YouTube.
Oh no, yeah, no, I couldn't. I could do 60 minutes of Fortnite. Maybe I could even stretch that into 2 hours. But the moment that game goes off, it's back to the to-do list.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about all together, by the way. I'm talking throughout the day, 3 hours of watching YouTube. So, and that feeling by the end of the day is I didn't work enough and I just watched YouTube and I didn't get to, let's say, play a game or watch a movie or show, or I don't know, because I waste so much time procrastinating during the work hours, because I'm my own boss, I can do whatever I want. I end up working later than I want to. And by the time I'm done working and have the time to do fun things, I don't have the energy, and then I just watch more YouTube because I don't have the energy to watch a movie, or let's say I want to watch a show. I'm too tired or not feeling I have a headache. So I'm not going to now watch, new episodes of a thing that I have to, register what's happening basically. Or play, I can't play any video game. I can't play Pokemon when my head hurts. And and I'm tired, because especially the handheld games, I will fall asleep. It sucks.
Sure.
We're both YouTubers. So
yeah,
we both have this feeling of, I have a fun job. I'm privileged. I shouldn't complain about my job. But it's there are negatives about literally every job, including the fun ones. And for example, the physical ones are what are the good things about the YouTube job, which is you get to be your own boss. You get to work wherever you want, which is, I guess, your home. You get to make whatever content you want to. And you also, if you are successful, you have a stable income based on just your interests. Mm-hmm. While the negatives are the mental ones, not the physical ones. There are a lot of negatives from being a YouTuber that other jobs do not have. They may have other mental health problems from their job. I mean, a doctor, doctors have the highest suicide rate ever. And just because our weaknesses aren't physical and, can manifest in a way that you can prove to others, doesn't mean it doesn't have the weaknesses. I literally sacrificed my mental health for my job. And just because it's my mental health and not money or my leg, doesn't mean that it's not valid. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
This is not one of the worst jobs. That is a fact.
No,
it is not one of the worst jobs.
I definitely feel like I'm in the timeline of things that I want. I do. Logistically, there's a lot that's right, Go on.
You said you're constantly worried about, are these the things that I want, or are these the things that are good? Or like am I in the ideal relationship? Am I in the? I mean, I don't know if that's what you're actually thinking about.
No. But like that's not really a thing. Like, I want to be clear. I've spoken to Phoebe about this.
Yeah.
Like, I love her, and this is an amazing relationship. It's just it's more about the fear of like, if everything I thought I knew about myself about as a person and the constructs I made for my definitions of the world are now being challenged, what am I about to discover? That's more the fear of
That's hilarious. Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, okay, yeah. That's you just going through therapy. So it's like that. No, that's what I was feeling, and I'm still feeling in a positive way by now, actually, where it's like, oh, my perspective is not the correct one. It's like, it's just one of many, and anything I think could be incorrect. You should obviously stick by your ideals and stuff, but it's like, you should always accept more perspectives. You don't have to adopt those perspectives, but you should always hear more about whatever you're going through from others' perspectives, or, just things that you aren't going through, so you can learn about those things that, can help your perspective. And I know friends, for example, they think they are smart. They're super smart, and they are super successful in various aspects. But they definitely have their own mental health problems. But don't go to therapy. And I'm at the point where I want to tell them, guys, you aren't correct about everything. You're just some guy. And even if you're not going through therapy, you got to learn that you are just some person. And you will be wrong about a lot of things. And it's actually a good thing, because that means you don't have only access to only what is in your mind. You have access to the knowledge and the opinions of literally everybody else that you can now learn from and adopt. Before therapy, I was a very rigid person, and I was very, in terms of my opinions and my perspective. And now I just, it's a peaceful feeling knowing that you may be incorrect. Like, what you're thinking is maybe incorrect, and that means you can fix it and change it. Like,
that's true.
That's not the end product of not being correct. Isn't that you're incorrect? That's it. Sucks. Life's over. It's no. Okay, now you are. That means you're able to fix it if you found the fact that you are incorrect.
Right. But so I guess then the fear comes from, and what I'm afraid of comes from. I've discovered that I may be incorrect. The decisions that have led me to where I am may have been based in a level of incorrectness, right? And or that they may, my worldview has been, maybe I've tricked myself
because of your traumas and mental health problems in the
yeah, and because I've taken this optimistic approach of, oh well, let's just power on and carry on, doodle-doodle-doodle, and I've worked really hard to build this life, like, to the point of mental exhaustion. And so now the question is, am I gonna now find out that it was wrong to build it this way? Sure, but is there things in my life that just this doesn't fulfill me? I've been working so hard for something that maybe doesn't fulfill me.
Yeah,
that is very exciting. Of course, it's the gateway to new opportunity and a new, but also it's terrifying because I've put a lot in. So, I feel like I've lost a lot, to make it happen.
I mean, I said it in this podcast already, where it's the same thing. I have sacrificed a lot in my life just to build this career. And I've noticed recently that it was incorrect to do that. It was not correct to sacrifice my social life and other aspects of my mental health just to become a successful YouTuber. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm also, I don't know the answer yet, so I don't have.
Can I ask? So your social life, you feel like you've completely sacrificed that for this?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm sorry. That's hard.
Not
that's really hard.
Directly, I told my friends I can't hang out with them because I have to edit this video. That's not what happened. It was more, I developed social anxiety because of my job, whether it be because you have thousands of comments, talking about you.
Right.
I gained an anxiety disorder through my job, which prevents me from now socializing.
I see. Right. And yeah.
It's not that YouTube is literally saying you can't talk to your friends because you have to, be a YouTuber.
Sure.
It's just
and was there a thought process that you think specifically led you to that? Like, whether that was well, you need to work, you need to hustle, you need to make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's gonna pay off in the end, and you can socialize after YouTube. But it's nah, that's it. I've lost a lot of connections because not because I told them to buzz off, but more just because I didn't accept some friend hangout sessions. I didn't keep in contact with people and now it's just kind of not too. It's too late from my perspective of perspective of a person with social anxiety, but obviously it's never too late to just reach out to a person.
Yeah.
But it's just I've crippled myself. I've literally just I've now have this handicap. And
that's such a relatable thought, by the way, what you just said about like, oh well, I just see friends later, and it's like, yeah. It's the same. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm like, well, when everything else gets too much, then I'll just see a therapist. I'll deal with it later, and I'll somewhere in the future find the time to just deal with that sacrifice that I made.
Yeah,
and it's like that never comes. You just find more and more reasons to keep doubling down on the path that you've chosen.
But that also means that it's just up to you to stop. Like it's up to you to now fix this.
Which is what I'm definitely realizing.
I also had to deal with actually recently, which is the fact that what if I'm not fulfilled by this career? What if I worked all this time, worked very hard, and now this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, or this is just, I can't keep going the way I am going right now. Obviously for different reasons for both of us, but it's like, for example, it's actually related to my anxiety in the beginning of this episode, which is just because I had a video that did well, doesn't mean that I don't feel like my channel is, dying, even though it isn't. It is not dying. But that doesn't mean that I feel like I'm not able to do anything I want on my channel. I'm not able to do anything I want on my channel. I have to do the videos that get views, even though I'm still relatively successful. That means I can't do a lot of the ideas that I want to do that just will tank the channel if I do them. And that leaves me a little less fulfilled. Even though, like, let's say 2 years ago, I got this boost of fulfillment once I started making all these art-related videos. Because before then, I wasn't making any art-related videos, and there was this aspect of my life of my interest that I wasn't able to, I didn't have an outlet for. And then I was able to start making art videos, and then I felt even more fulfilled. I'm like, oh, now I get to actually create things and new things, and I feel fulfilled. But now 2 years later, I don't feel fulfilled anymore from that because those things aren't gaining views. It's stupid that I'm thinking that. But it's also giving me hope where it's like 2 years ago I was feeling the same way, and then I found a way to...
Then you found something
to
express.
Yeah, I have to marry my expressions and to combine my interests with my channel, and I can do that again in the future if I want to, and gain new fulfillment from the channel.
I think that was part of why I wanted to upload to the vlog channel as well, and why it ends up being a lot about mental health, because I don't want to make that my identity, right? Like, I enjoy Birdkeepertoby, and I really love what I get to do there. It's entirely the case, really, though, that it's just the one dimension, as I've mentioned many times before, and I want people to know that I'm a person, which sounds really stupid, but I really want people to know that I'm a human being. And so it's not going to go up on Birdkeepertoby. I don't want to risk that on the channel, but I'll post it on all the other socials. A couple thousand people watch it, whatever, that's fine. I don't really care how many people watch it, just that some people watch it and go, yeah, you know what? Like, I relate to that. I get that. I feel that. That means a lot to me. But I'm also, and this is something else that's come up just through conversations with friends, I'm also very aware that, like, the vlog channel is a lot of that, but I do not want my identity online to become Toby's having a mental health crisis every single week.
Yeah.
That is not to disparage the people that struggle weekly at all, but there are some individuals who I think, whether intentionally or not, romanticize mental health.
Yeah.
And kind of make it, and I think we all know about it, but it's kind of icky and it's gross and it's hard to talk about. I'm not saying this is the majority of people. I don't have anyone specific in mind when I'm saying this, but I do. Well, now I do, but like I'm not obviously going to say there are people who are on the internet who I think make it seem almost kind of like sexy to have mental health issues. Yeah. And I want to be clear, it is not. And I do not want anyone to look at my videos and go, look at the attention. I crave that. So my intention is that future videos on the vlog channel, while I will still feel the option to be open about these things, can also be about my other interests,
There are a lot of people, especially nowadays, that just don't have a community to belong to, or whether it be an interest or a culture or anything like that is a huge part of their identity. and they just tend to latch on to one aspect of their identity and make that their identity because because online, let's say, there's a community surrounding that identity. For good reasons, you should have a community that you can talk about with mental health problems with, but then they take that to the extreme, and then that becomes their identity instead of just an aspect of their lives that they have to deal with. I don't know, like in the past. Well, Pokemon is a healthy thing.
I get what you mean, though, when it comes to that, because it's a case of, with Pokemon, for example, making your identity online about Pokemon, it's really low stakes. At the end of the day, we're all just having fun. Everyone's just a Pokemon fan, whatever. But when you start going into the big topics, whether that's health, religion, sexuality, whatever, it kind of becomes the case that, like, people's emotions and lives are very much tied to these things. And becoming... unless you're almost like an educated expert, it's obviously always good to give your perspective, and we need as many perspectives as possible, sure. I just worry that, like, unless you're like an expert, people can sort of own a topic, and then it's like they're maybe not like the best educated person to talk about it. And maybe even the perpetuation of viewership could inform them to further, like, get into that thing and sort of be like, this gets views, this gets clicks. Doesn't really matter if I know what I'm talking about. What just matters is that I'm giving my opinion. Does that? But then and with Pokemon, that's fine because it's like low stakes. Who cares? Like, who cares if I'm wrong about Pokemon? It doesn't matter anything.
Yeah.
But when it's about people's lives, in a really deep way, I do worry about that. I get what you mean.
So, for example, you can let religion be the community that you seek comfort in, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say who's the head of any religion? You have your priests, you have your rabbis, for example. Okay, you can't talk about everything to a rabbi, even though you think you can, and you should be talking to whatever authority figure you have about whatever problems you have. But a rabbi won't be able to give you the truth about, let's say, sexuality, or let's say, your interests. Let's say you're dealing with problems with your other gamers that you have. They won't know what the hell you're talking about. Every single authority figure in whatever community you are part of will not have the answers for a lot of aspects of you, because you are not them and they're not you.
Yes.
And that's why you shouldn't make one aspect of yourself your identity. Ideally, you would want to have authority figures, or authority. I'm not talking about like cops, government and cops. I'm talking about just people who know about their subject.
Experts
in the subject. You want to, make relationships.
Seek knowledge from
a lot of different perspectives. And well, the answer, honestly, is always family. But, not everybody has family. And that's what leads them to seek out these communities. But it's just because a family really is just a collection of people. People that you can trust or that you know. It's not based on authority or anything. It's just people to fall back on, just normal people, you know what I'm saying, that you can trust. And that's what you should be phoning your communities around, or your friend groups, just the fact that you guys are people and that you can trust each other with, you know what I'm saying, humanity. But again, to everybody listening right now, there has been a huge cut. And you're going to be thinking, whoa, did Ron get into like heavy controversial topics? I mean, not necessarily, but it happens a lot in the podcast where whenever I bring up something philosophical or some kind of message that I want to bring up, I always have to now think about the exception, because that's our society nowadays. And then because I have to now, let's say I gave some kind of rule or message that I want to say, and then I'm like, oh wait, but that may not apply to this other group of people. Then now I have to now go on a different tangent just to like make the other group of people that are exceptions either feel better, or just like give them a separate message or a separate advice. And then I have to and then I have to find my way back into the original topic, and then I end up forgetting whatever I want to say. And then it just becomes this whole convoluted mess because...
So, well, let's talk about that. Like, why that makes you anxious, right?
It makes me anxious. It feels like now I can't talk about anything, because anytime I talk about actual serious topics and actually try to give my advice, because even if I'm wrong, might as well give advice. You know what I'm saying? You don't... Any advice that I say, you don't have to take it, but it's always cool to have different perspectives. And it's not like I'm a person who tends to be wrong or tends to be evil or tends to have negative advice. So might as well hear it, even if it just so happens to be wrong advice. But I just did that. I literally just did that. That was an exception. where I'm like, I had to even put the exception on me. I'm like, I may be wrong. Then I had to go on a tangent on why you can still listen to me, and now I have to go back to this. I have to go back to the topic. Dude, that's
you know what it's like. It's like there's the Bo Burnham song, "Repeat Stuff," where he's like, my perfect girl has arms on either side of their torso, because he's being generic, right?
Yeah.
And then his manager's like, dude, you're not appealing to little girls who don't have arms. Like, not cool.
Exactly.
And you're like, are you gonna make the exception? You're gonna apologize?
Like I was literally going to give advice that literally probably people have said for hundreds of years. But then someone's like, Ron, someone in the comment section will probably be like, Ron, that's very inconsiderate of you. I don't have this thing. I can't use that.
I don't have that privilege.
I don't have that privilege. The privilege.
The example you were giving was just about like family being a good fallback for a community that you always have. And we got into this whole thing off podcast where you're just kind of like, but wait, what about the people who don't have family? And like, fair enough. Like, I get the anxious.
Because here's the thing: before I became a YouTuber and made a lot of these connections of like, I was just like everybody in a community, an insular community. Like some people have more. Like, you may have been in a more like a community of like different people because you didn't, let's say, go to like a religious school, or like you didn't, but you did go into school in like a small town, I'm assuming, and therefore it was like there weren't that many perspectives, I'm assuming. I'm like assuming, what is the makeup? What is the majority makeup of your community? Let's say.
I don't know. Like, I guess just like white English, I assume either atheist or Christian. I'm not 100% sure, but like I think that's probably the majority makeup of where I live. But it's a relatively diverse town, to be fair. Cool. Like So even though I literally live in the most diverse place ever, I went to a school based on our shared religion and technically also ethnicities. And then when you leave school, you go to, let's say, college, you become a YouTuber, let's say, meet people from across the world, you learn that everybody has different upbringings and different perspectives. And then I have to marry that with the fact that, wait, but that also means that my perspective is valid too. Just because, for example, I've met friends of ours that don't have good families, that hate their parents, and that that some of our advice about family will not help, because they'll be like, I can't fall back on my family. And I love these people, I love these friends, so I don't want to give them bad advice that they can't take. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that my perspective was invalid too. You know what I'm saying? That like, just because I can't give advice to that specific friend, that doesn't mean that I can't give that advice to people like me. Like, I'm not saying that my advice is good for everybody in the world. I'm just saying that all the time.
It's good for the people that in the audience that may have the same problems or perspective as me.
Most people recognize that. Everyone listening is going to recognize that. But there's always that one person. There's always the one person who's like, actually, that is not my shared experience. And how dare you? Not just like, but fair play. How dare you?
How dare you?
And, but then it's difficult because I don't want to argue against that, because I am coming from a place of majority privilege. So I don't want to argue against it. I get it. I also feel uncomfortable in that situation.
That's why I have.
Get it wrong.
That's one of the reasons I have social anxiety, where I got that. I thought that people in real life to think like that, because that's a majority of whenever I say my opinion online, which was like for a few years, a majority of people I was talking to or talking towards were people online, and then because of that I would have that response where some of them would say what would be toxic about it, and then I slowly thought that that's how people in the real world respond to your opinions,
right? Sure.
And then that forms social anxiety disorder.
It is also the case that obviously with YouTube comments specifically, most people will respond in kind and sort of just like, oh yeah, I feel that's so super relatable, I understand what you're talking about. And the comment that's going to stick out that you're going to remember the most is the one in 1,000 that's just like, hey, I think you're a terrible person because you didn't mention people from the moon. And you're just like, well, I guess I am a terrible person because I had the privilege of being on Earth.
So the question is, how... you know what I mean? I noticed that the way you deal with that is by literally just not addressing the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the problem... this is the thing that... what I actually forgot when you were talking about your thing, and then I ended up forgetting, is... Here's what's hilarious. I think I forgot it again by just saying that.
No!
What are we talking about? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Quickly.
We were just talking about people living on Earth.
No, how you deal with it. Okay, here's my problem, is that I can't deal with it like that because I don't have friends in real life that I can talk about these things, let's say. So I am desperate for an outlet. I'm desperate for people to hear my opinions. And it just so happens that the only people that hear my opinions are, let's say, when I'm talking to you on this podcast, or you and my other YouTube friends that aren't readily available, let's say, next to me, near me. So I can't just now get validations about other aspects of my life. Like, let's you say, oh, that's what it related to what you said, where it's like, you want to get validation, or you want to be able to have outlets or just talk about things that you can't talk about on Birdkeepertoby. Okay, or do things that you can't do on Birdkeepertoby. Same thing. I want to do things that I can't do on True Green 7. But a lot of that is things that I want to talk about. But it just so happens that I don't have friends to talk about those things. And that's what makes me even more frustrated.
I could give you your own advice, which is that we were talking about in the kind of disappeared segment, which is fall back on family, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's someone, if nothing else.
And thank God that I do have, let's say, a brother and sister that share a lot of my interests, that I get to talk about them. But for example, not all the time I want to talk about my interests. Sometimes I just want to talk about philosophical stuff that my brother doesn't want to hear. Yeah. And let's say my best friend does want to hear, but I barely ever get to see my best friend. So for, let's say, months at a time, I'm holding on to these like feelings that I have that I can't talk to
can't
with
express
anybody.
Anywhere.
And sometimes I want to talk about them on the podcast, but you can't.
I think what we've kind of established in this first segment of the podcast overall then is that just like being part of a number of diverse communities and being able to express yourself in multiple ways to multiple people, whether that's family, whether that's via vlogging, whether that's by your Pokemon passions, whether that's by doing your art, or whether that's by family or local communities or whatever, or therapy, all of these are a form of I can express myself and talk about in myself differently and in my thoughts in this context.
Yeah.
And just having a wide array of people from all levels of expertise and all levels of experience is probably going to lead you to having the healthiest, most fulfilled life, I guess.
100%. That's exactly what I wanted to say. Thank you, Toby.
But you know what? I left out all the people that don't have lives that are in fact dead now, so...
Love you, man. Hilarious.
Love you too.
I think the whole point of this entire conversation, what led to this, is basically that you're just going through therapy. You're just starting therapy, and I've already gone through like years of therapy. And this feeling that I'm feeling is basically, why isn't my friend Toby just doing the things that I've already learned to do, basically, and have already learned about myself through therapy and have gone through these feelings? And also, like, are these the things that all the breakthroughs that I've went through? Is Toby going to go through? Because again, we're different people with different traumas and different anxiety disorders. What even is why are you? What is the thing that has caused you to go to therapy? What
is the thing that's caused me to go to therapy? That's a good question. It's very much a case that I have discovered through therapy that I do a thing called rubber banding. And rubber banding is, for those of you who don't know, when you are like going about your life, just living your dream, and then something pops up. Maybe you're in a location, or maybe a person, or a smell, or whatever, and ping, you're back to a time when times were difficult. And I find that there are small things in my life that do that for me, that now swing me back. And I'm not going to, so I don't think I'm going to say what those things are, but it's very much a case that like, I would sort of go, why can't the past just stay in the past? And I get quite emotionally charged about it. And then what would happen is that Phoebe would point out to me, but the past is in the past. Like, these things are long since you've done a lot of work to get your life to where it is now. And so there's a frustration with, I've worked really hard to get my life to where it is now. Why can't I just move on and forget about these things? And it's because I haven't dealt with these things. It's because instead I have pushed them down and said, life's short, I've got to make the most of it and move on. So that's sort of it.
Now, I'm sure you've thought of this, but why haven't you labeled that as PTSD? And obviously, I'm just saying this as a person who is not a therapist or studied psychology, so it probably isn't PTSD. But
I sort of did a vlog about this as well, which is I was talking about being a victim. Trauma is like a similar umbrella to this, right? I am aware that I have been through traumatic events. I don't want to dramatize. I don't want it to sound like because you think of trauma and you think of certainly the word PTSD, and to me, that evokes images of like people at war experiencing shell shock. That is not what I've experienced.
Dude, my brother has OCD, but it's a PTSD OCD. Okay? But he didn't go through war or anything. He just was cyberbullied for like a week. And that caused him to have OCD. Like crippling OCD.
Wow.
So it's like,
I'm sorry.
He's already way better than he used to, but like, and his life is amazing. But it still was from PTSD.
I specifically have a strange relationship with the word victim and the word sort of trauma in general, because I don't want to think of myself as a victim, and that's unhealthy, right? Because my therapist asked me a couple of weeks ago, she said, what does the word victim mean to you? And I couldn't answer it. I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, this is interesting because you seem to have a real aversion to being one, but you can't even tell me what it means. And I thought about it, and I went back to her and I said, the thing is, if somebody like punches me in the face, I get it, I'm a victim. Sure, I've been a victim of a crime.
Yeah,
but then there's like, that's just a fact, right? But then there's like being a victim, living your life out there, wallowing in it, and not acknowledging that I have the power to do something, to move on to, okay, the past happened, but now we move on. Now, to me, that sounded like a really healthy response. But what I have been learning over these last few weeks is actually, okay, but what you've not done is, you don't need to live your life as a victim, but you need to acknowledge that you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You've been through some things, and if you're not giving yourself any time, to process these things ever, they're all just bottled up, and you're just constantly running around putting out these fires and waiting for things, and then these things rubber band you to seeing other things as potential issues, and it's all just bottling up, ready to explode, because you haven't taken the time to just sit there, be with your thoughts. You know, the fact that I came out of therapy on Monday or on Tuesday and immediately came home and just found any excuse to work, to not sit and be with my thoughts, shows what a problem it is for me, that I just like, I'm not taking the, because I thought I was being pragmatic. I thought I was being like, this is the healthy thing to do, is to just like keep on pushing on, acknowledge, you know what, I'm grateful for the life I've had, to the point of almost feeling guilty for the life that I have. Like, I gotta get going. And in terms of, in regards to like, why am I going to discover the things that you've discovered? Maybe it's possible, but I've also spent the last several years looking at friends, hearing about their anxieties and thinking, well, why haven't you learned what I have to just keep on going and be grateful, Yeah. But it turns out that maybe that was wrong.
Because you're a person and you're going to be wrong about things. It just happens that that was wrong. Like, I had philosophies that I thought were like completely true, and I still like adhere to them, but like the more balanced versions of them. Like, for example, let's say a few years ago, I was a very like, my life is all about balance. Everything's balance. But I thought balance meant centrism, let's say, for example. But it's like, no. I slowly learned that you have to apply balance to the actual philosophy of balance itself. So sometimes you have to balance out your philosophy by sometimes being extreme. Sometimes things are black and white, even if your whole perspective and your whole philosophy is that things aren't black and white. So, like, I was going around saying things aren't black and white. It's not always black and white, but sometimes things are.
Response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes things are black and white, and you have to put your foot down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even the philosophy itself is not black and white. Sometimes you can't use the philosophy every single time. And balance itself doesn't literally mean 50-50 split between, two options. Sometimes it's an 80-20 or 90-10, and that 10% just balances out that 90%, so it's not an extreme 100% one-sided decision. So it's like, it's less about tearing down this philosophy and being like, no, that philosophy is wrong, and more just balancing out the philosophy. Just like my philosophy of balance itself. You have to balance out the philosophy of balance, so you should also balance out whatever philosophy you have. You won't be throwing away your life and your way perceiving the whole world. They're still part of you. You're just going to add on to it, basically.
And I
make
think
amendments.
What you've just said there, like amendments, that's actually a really reassuring thing. Because, like I say, like the response to like sort of going, but what if I've been wrong this whole time? And the frustration of that. Almost, it's like, well, damn, if I was wrong about that, like, I'm wrong. I could be wrong about everything. Yeah. And, like, what you're saying is, well, wrong, but not to the point of, like, dismantle everything and become a totally different person. Just, there are elements that you need to make room for, like, a more colorful life with more range, you know? That's helpful. Thank you.
Back to the thing that you're welcome. Back to the thing that you said about, not being a victim, where it's like, it's the same thing as like a scar, where it's like, you can be scarred. You can be a person literally named Scar, and their whole identity is their scar. Or you can just be a person who just like, you lift their shirt and just so happened they have a scar, but it's not a thing that you know about them. You know what I'm saying? It's like the people in media, for example, that are named Scar, for example, they have a scar, and they're called Scar because they haven't left their victimhood, and they have this trauma that they haven't dealt with. You'll see a person named Scar in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, by the way. But you can also talk about. I
could only think of the Lion King, but yeah.
You can also think about Lion King, for example, where it's like he has a scar, and you barely even notice that scar. Technically, when I picture the character Scar, I barely even think about the scar. I think about his mane or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But he's still scarred. His whole life, he's felt less than his brother or whatever.
And he's not let it go. And
he's not let it. He's let the scar be
his thing.
Be his thing, basically. And I'm talking about his mental scar, for example. Yeah. And the scar is just a physical representation of his actual inward. That's how cartoons work. You're going to design them based on their personality. But then you'll have characters, for example, cool characters that they have scars, but their name isn't Scar. Nobody talks about their scar. Just they happen to have a scar, and it makes them look cool. And you know that they're a victim, but it's not part of the.
There's a story there. Yeah.
There's a story, and it's part of them.
Humanity of them.
But it's not who they are. Whenever I say, there's a character in Naruto called Kakashi, very famous anime character. He has a scar, and it's part of his identity, and it's a huge part of his backstory. But whenever people say Kakashi, and someone will be like, "Oh, you mean the guy with the scar?" No, you don't say that. You say, "Oh, the guy with the Sharingan, which is the special eye, or the guy with the white hair, or the guy that looks sad, or whatever." You don't say the guy with the scar. Because there are other characters with scars in that show because they're ninjas and ninjas get scars. But
I think part of the reason that these developments are so scary is sort of around 2016 I went through a breakup and I had a friend pass away, right? I've spoken about Foster I think before on the podcast, but I had a friend pass away, which is obviously that is a big trauma. Like he's my age and I had to watch that happen over time. That was a horrific trauma. No, of course I'm not over it. Like, of course I'm sad about that.
That's an actual bad thing.
That's like horrific. But it didn't happen. Like, I didn't die, so it's kind of like, you see, I'm already patting myself on the back. Like,
unless you die.
Yeah, right, you're right. But I know it's ridiculous. I know it is, and this is what we're working on. But then also in 2016, I went through this breakup, and 2016 was also a very big year for Birdkeepertoby as a channel, as the beginning, and a big part of that breakup with somebody that I was fully in love with was related to me wanting to pursue this job and this life. And that, as a result of choosing this life, I've had traumas and upsets and things that have hurt that have come with it, right? That come along with it. And I'm sure if I chose a different life, I would have had traumas and things that would have come with that set of reality, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter which path I took or where I ended up. I would have experiences that are negative regardless of which direction I take, but I took this one and I have these experiences that I'm still dealing with, and so there's that fear of like, oh man, that big life decision I made 7 years ago, not so much, it's not like what if I chose otherwise, because like I know I feel that I did the thing that was right for me, for sure, and I'm really happy with like the life that I have. But it's also, there's this level of like, I've sunk so much into this and pursuing this mindset of unrelenting optimism and unrelenting like, don't worry, it'll all be okay. And the idea that I've been doing it wrong is just, there's like a little level of like, that comes with that I'm now like.
The problem is that it's the opposite end. You'll end up like me if you think the opposite way, which is, a thing that is constantly brought up in therapy is that I'm afraid to risk regret.
Right.
I don't do things because I don't want to end up thinking what you are thinking about. You don't want to end up like me. You want to live a life and do a lot of things that you may regret, but also a lot of things that you didn't regret.
Mostly just hopefully things that go well.
Yeah, no, because you're not even thinking about all the. I mean, you said them, but like there are a lot of things that did go well. Majority of them did go well.
The majority of them do. Yeah,
and half the things that you're regretting, also, even if they were negative, they aren't the effects of those negative things aren't gonna last forever, or they aren't huge. So it's like, while me's the opposite. I'm now not fulfilled in my life because I haven't lived to regret things.
That's deep, man.
Except for the regret that I didn't live to regret. I regret not regretting.
Well, get busy living or get busy dying.
Okay, exactly.
I think the other thing is that comes with all this is like, I think about that breakup a lot because, first of all, it was my first time being in love, which is huge. But also it's a case that like most of my traumas in life fall within the last 7 years, more or less, other than Dan dying away, which is only about a month before the breakup or 2 months before the breakup. Other than that, they all fall within the last 7 years. And so
that's because you did the most things all the last 7 years.
100%. So you're right. But there's like this romanticization of like a time when life was simpler. And it's never going to be simple again. Okay, so the last 7, but you're right. Like, if it's because I've done loads of things. I've been involved in the world. I've been, doing stuff.
Well, that's why in general, I thought you were a perfect co-host, because we have, even though people think, we're both like these wholesome Poketubers, we probably have similar philosophies in lives. No, we have completely different opinions in life and perspectives. So, and sometimes even opposite perspectives, like what we were talking about. So, it's interesting when those are finally we're able to touch base on those things. And
I am so excited for you to come over. It's
Same.
like, we're literally like a month away, just over.
Literally a month.
That was a squeal. I'm genuinely excited. You're gonna hang out. It's gonna be great.
But another thing that literally we created this podcast for was also to generate some Pokemon.
We did. That's true. We did do that. Do you think we'll do that in this episode?
Nope. That's it. Bye.
Nope. Bye.
Here's what sucks. I hate how that is the default joke in any podcast or any video. The joke is the video's done, but it isn't.
Yeah, it isn't.
We're pulled
still
one
here.
on you.
You saw the time code before you started. We're still going. It's not a joke. It's not a good joke.
It's a terrible joke. Let's generate that Pokemon. Maybe it has to do with our traumas. Oh. Okay. Calyrex.
Dude, nice.
Okay, I'm actually a huge fan of Calyrex. It's a Pokemon that's relatively unpopular because it just looks weird, but I love its design. I love its vibe. I love how what it did in the story. I literally like everything about it. While people are like, ew, it has a big head. And it's not even its head. That's the crown. That's its brain. What's your opinion on just Calyrex in general before we get into deep stuff?
Really cool.
You actually
really like it. Awesome addition. Bit confused about like, in terms of the deity status of the Pokemon world, like where it kind of resides. Is it just a legend within the Crown Tundra? Is it like, I'm interested to see how they integrate it into future generations.
Mewtwo isn't even a legendary technically. Nobody talks about it in Kanto unless you go to the mansion, to the lab.
No, sure, but like, how Mewtwo was created. I guess my point is like, if in regards to your like Earth creation gods like Dialga, Palkia, maybe Groudon and Kyogre, and then you're like more nuanced, like, oh, Mewtwo is a creation in a lab, or a Raikou and Suicune are revived creatures. Like, what's Calyrex? Is it just about the Crown Tundra?
I guess it's the same as the Swords of Justice, where they're a legend where they roamed and where they helped people, just like Calyrex, and they're both,
I suppose so,
very, very strong, but they're not like Rayquaza. Legendary literally just... I mean, what's legendary in Japanese? Is it legendary too?
I don't know.
Mythical is illusory Pokemon. So it's not that they're mythical, it's that they're just hard to find.
Yeah. Rarely seen.
Exactly. They're like illusions. While...
And I guess the implication is it's unsure if what you're seeing is even real. Like, it's that level of mystery to them, I guess, is the...
Legendary means they have a legend surrounding them, and Calyrex definitely does. Calyrex has a legend.
But I think it's super cool. And it's interesting. It's got the blue Dynamax energy when it Gigantamax, which is super unique. There's like loads there that ties in with Zacian Zamazenta and the lore and stuff, which I think is really cool. And it's thematically the perfect tie-in Pokemon for the end of Sword and Shield, because it's a Galar focused, obviously, like, you know, god. It's also got it's like a Pokemon that sees through time, so that's your tie to like Legends Arceus and Diamond and Pearl, but also now with Scarlet and Violet, with time being a big theme. It rides on the back of 2 horse Pokemon, and obviously rideable legendaries is like you know, we're about to get these motorbike legendaries in Scarlet and Violet. You've got, obviously, it's the leader of the Crown Tundra, and I think having a Tundra DLC right before Sinnoh, which is famous for its big snowy tundras, is like, it's all just like, it's the perfect end of that gen Pokemon.
Well, to me, it was actually a negative thing, because when I was playing Crown Tundra, I'm like, whoa, this is what the Sinnoh remix is going to be like. It's going to be amazing. And then I was let down. That. But I was thinking, actually, I thought you were going to say, because Calyrex is finally, like, people wanted royalty Pokemon in this region, and we finally got a king. So it's like this is the king Pokemon that we thought was going to be in the game originally.
But that's the other element of it. It's Calyrex is the king, and within UK, I guess, history, I mean, within a lot of world histories, the monarchy or the emperor or whoever is like the connection point between the mortal world and the spiritual world, right? And like the kings. And so with Calyrex, you've kind of got that, where it's this connection point between the more animal and living creatures of the world of Galar, but also it's the king, so it like works for Galar, but then it's like the gateway before Diamond and Pearl, where we're talking about literally the creation gods. And I just think it's like the most perfectly themed Pokemon.
What's crazy is that we see it a lot in the anime, where, like, you know, Pokemon talking to humans, or like Pokemon that feel like humans, basically. While Calyrex is the first Pokemon like that in the actual game canon that feels like a human and that can talk to us like humans.
Yeah.
It's literally the most human Pokemon canonically.
Feels a little weird putting it in a Pokeball.
So we all know that Pokeballs are, like, apparently inside is like the ideal, like, environment for a Pokemon, and the more rare the Pokeball is, the better the environment is. Master Ball is literally like an entire, like, 5-star hotel spa island, while a Pokeball is just like a normal hotel room.
I tell you what, there's been a real inconsistency about the way Pokeballs work throughout the Pokemon world. So in the manga, obviously we can like see the physical Pokemon like shrunk down as if they're in like a little capsule, which is, I guess, closer to the original inception of like capsule monsters, is that they live in a little capsule and then they size up. But in Legends Arceus, we learned that it's about the Pokemon's natural ability to shrink down, which is totally jarring, but interesting. And
to be fair, that's what the original thing was. No, based on what you said.
I guess the original idea wasn't that the Pokemon was necessarily shrinking down in size to fit in the ball, but they were like being turned into a sort of energy signature.
I mean, both. I'm saying, like you said, like they were just shrinking to capsules. Even in the manga, you could see them, like you can see the tiny versions of them inside the ball.
Well, no, I think in the manga it was that, but like in Gen 1,
well, the manga was just interpreting whatever I assume
interpreted. Because obviously in the anime, like, it's just energy, isn't it? It's like, and the red line happens. But it could be retroactively that they were shrinking down, because the red light of a Pokeball, not too dissimilar from the red light from a raid den. And what a raid den is about, just bigger Pokemon. And messing with Pokemon sizes as a result of the life force of Pokemon or various energies is been super prevalent since, like, Totem Pokemon, Noble Pokemon, Alpha Pokemon, Gigantamax Pokemon. Like, it's everywhere. And so if Pokemon can get big as a release of energy, it can get smaller.
I think it makes sense, because the new version, where in proto times and older times and like 200 years ago, they didn't have the technology to turn Pokemon into energy, so they would have, you know, just like with apricorn balls or whatever, they weren't turning, like, I don't see how turning fruit into these balls also allowed them to turn these creatures into light and energy. I think in the past they really just were shrinking.
Okay, well, I see. I've got a theory about this. Several times I've mentioned my epic coming out about geology.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to wait for that.
Oh, you think that? So you think just like, let's say, Mega Evolution, or just a lot of these stones that are irradiated, the stones inside these balls or whatever, like they had the technology to have.
Yes, because the technology is inherent in the geology of the Pokemon world. Because with the apricorns, you don't just get them off of...
I'm so stupid.
You get the apricorns off of a tree, but you use the tumblestone that's made out of an ore that comes out of the earth. And obviously the origin ball comes from the origin ore. It's just interesting. With the Master Ball specifically, and you'll remember this, I think, when we used... Do you remember when we used to make videos that sort of like went on Loxton's channel?
Yeah.
Right. One of my first ones on there was about the Master Ball. People always bring up like, oh, it's just animal fighting and like you capture the Pokemon and like they don't have a choice. And I was like, no, they do have a choice. You don't knock out a Pokemon because to knock it out shows no restraint. You've got to win the Pokemon's seal of approval that you'll help it evolve and mega evolve. But Master Balls are the one Pokeball that is maybe the reason it never sells is because it's kind of illegal. And it's why it's always in the hands of like evil team leaders and scientists only, is because a Master Ball does not give the Pokemon the option to free itself.
And that's why you either, for example, you find it in the lab. You find it in the secret base, for example, of an evil team because they don't care about the will of Pokemon. They would have it, or a professor gives it to you because you've already shown, like throughout your journey, you've shown your ability to care for Pokemon, and there's a
level of like trustworthiness, and especially like when you've already taken on like a legendary Pokemon, it's kind of like, all right, there may come a time when the fate of the world depends on you having a Master Ball, so use it with great care.
Yeah. No, because for example, I was just playing Black and White 2, and Juniper just gave me it randomly, not before the legendary or anything. She just gave it to me towards like before the 7th gym, and I assume it's because by then she trusted me. But usually they also trust you with containing the massive legendary But in that game, it's not. It's literally just she just trusts you. That's it.
As far as I know, in the Pokemon world, there are 3 types of people that will give you the Master Ball, and they are evil team leaders or in their bases.
Yeah.
From professors. Or from winning the lottery, which is the only other way, I think.
No, I think that's canon. I love when you tell me a theory. I'm like, hey, wait, I think that's canon.
I might be mistaken on this. I need to reread all the new Marvel notes because I may be conflating a couple things. But I think Infinity Energy is used in the production of Pokeballs and somewhere. And in regards to stones, like we've seen throughout the history of the Pokemon world, like Sir Aaron's staff is a Pokeball effectively to like contain Lucario, and that's through containing Lucario's aura and life force. The life force is all the same stuff. Time and time again, it keeps happening. There's an episode of the anime where Jessie has a staff with like a red orb on the end. The red orb and blue orb are effectively,
I came up with a theory. Sorry.
Oh, I want to hear your theory.
So, if aura equals infinity, if infinity energy equals aura, right? Yep. Aura equals fighting type, because Lucario is a fighting type, not a psychic type.
Okay. Where are you going with this?
I think that's what illustrates that Pokemon like to fight. Because they all have infinity energy in them, which aura represents fighting, and they all have this fighting spirit in them.
Yes, I agree. That was a brilliant theory. You should turn that into a video. I would, but it was your theory, and I don't want to.
Okay, thank you.
I think you should make that into a video.
Okay, I will. I mean, it's going to get a lot of views, but if you,
I know, and I wish I could take it, but I'm just so busy right now doing nothing, So it's really hard. I think you.
Well, the question is, do you actually think that Lucario is like the fighting type represents its aura, or do you just think he's good at fighting and that's why he's a fighting type?
I don't think that. I don't know that I agree that aura. I mean, does aura represent fighting?
Is aura represented with what? If there was an aura Pokemon, there is. But if there was another aura Pokemon that was just pure aura, literally just an energy Pokemon.
I don't know whether it would necessarily be fighting. I don't know. Could be fighting. Could be psychic.
But then why isn't Lucario psychic if he's literally the aura Pokemon? Who cares about the steel type? They could have made him fighting psychic.
But just because he's a fighting type, he's got other inspirations as well, right?
Yeah.
Like I think he uses aura.
Aura is just neutral?
To fight. He's just like a spiritual fighter. But the aura is closer to like spirit than it is like fighting. He just happens to be able to tune into that and wield it well.
Oh, okay. So the fighting, just like how every fighting type uses a different martial art or whatever, and that's what makes them a fighting type.
Yeah, that's how I
uses
view
the power of aura to fight.
I see that like...
But like, let's say, what if you use the power of psychic to fight? Does that make you a psychic type?
If you use the power of psychic effect.
I mean, it does, I guess.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, that would make you that.
But then wait, are there grass types that, let's say, like, for example, Tsarina uses a whip, a grass whip. Why is she not a fighting type? Wait, is she a fighting type? She should have been a fighting type. She's not. She's pure grass. She should have been a fighting type. Because she uses the art of whip fighting or whatever. Just like, what's it called? Just like Mian Xiao.
You could literally argue, why is every Pokemon not a fighting type? Because they all fight.
But this is just also an argument for Lucario's fighting type not being based on its martial art, because there are a lot of Pokemon with martial arts that aren't fighting types.
Sure, but there's also a lot of Pokemon that are dragons that are not dragon type.
Yeah.
So the question then is, what is a type? And I think that's a really interesting conversation, right? Because the fighting type is not any Pokemon that can fight, because all Pokemon can fight. Yeah. And the ghost type, I think, is pretty well established not to be specific to, like, creatures that are actually dead.
Yeah.
Instead, they possess the energy of what we call the ghost type, and so on. Steel Pokemon aren't all steel. Some of them are made of different irons and metals, right? And so
Pokemon with dense
metal, like,
it doesn't mean metal, but things that are part of bodies that are incredibly dense.
So
more dense than a rock type.
What we do know, I think, is that there are certain types that have a certain significance to them. Like, certainly the dragon type in particular seems to be an energy typing that within Pokemon.
That's why there's like dragon beam. There's no dragon beam, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, dragon seems to be like really special. Like in the card game, like dragons use multiple different energy to fight, whereas other Pokemon just use the energy of their type. And specifically, like, I think Loxton did a deep dive video, like, when you look into, like, breaking down all the types, like dragon and then fairy, psychic. These are all types that have some very special significance to them.
Like, how does Mega Sceptile become a dragon type if he's literally the same exact creature?
Right. So he's just tapping into that part of the infinity energy spectrum, or the aura spectrum, or whatever.
So maybe infinity energy is every type.
I think it is. What you'll notice, and this is a discussion that might become really relevant soon with Scarlet and Violet, because there was lots of talk about, like, is there going to be like a third type or Pokemon changing type or whatever. In the card game, there was Delta species. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got your Pokemon that, like, Charmander's electric, Mew is water, what's that about? And the description, the flavor text, is that scientists went to the island of Holon, and they used electromagnetic waves to try and locate Mew, but instead they affected the biology of various Pokemon on the island, changing their types most often to the metal type. And I think that's actually to do with what card texture was the cheapest for them to make, but there are a lot of part metal Pokemon that appear. And that's really interesting to me, right? Because it implies that every Pokemon has the DNA ability to be any type. But in Charmander, fire is a common expression. That's not to say that it can't use Metal Claw, or that like Snorlax can't use Surf, or that Lapras can't use Thunder. Can Lapras use Thunderbolt? I don't know. And in fact, some Pokemon, like Greninja, who has Protean, or Kecleon that has color change, these Pokemon have the ability to express these other forms of their DNA when put into those circumstances. Wow. But the common expression of a Bulbasaur is its grass poison type. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
That's fine. So that's, to anybody who's watched Naruto, that's similar to chakra. So in the show, everybody has chakra, and everybody can technically turn that chakra into different elements like fire, water, earth. But people have the inherent affinity for those elements. So like Naruto can use his affinity is wind, right? But it doesn't mean that he can't use a water style if he learned how to, but he didn't because he's stupid. but yeah, same thing, I guess.
Yeah. Though that's just my interpretation based on my research of the lore. And there is, I mentioned earlier with the infinity energy in Pokeballs, there is a common error that I run into, a sort of confirmation bias, which is I might hear something in the form of a theory, accept it as fact over the years, and I have caught myself 2 or 3 times thinking, I've quoted that off as fact in several videos, but actually it was a theory that I heard ages ago that made sense
happens
to me.
Too sometimes.
And then it's like, yeah, it just sort of becomes part of the dialogue, and it's still lots of fun. It's whatever. It's again going full circle to earlier. This is the lowest stakes thing in the world. Like, if I'm wrong about a Pokemon theory, nothing happens. But like. Also, I'm just like, I thought that was real, but it wasn't.
That's the problem in general, that the internet has conditioned us to feel passionately about every sort of problem. When things are in tiers, problems have tiers. But people will literally respond in the comments the same way to you making a Pokemon mistake, to literally being okay with genocide or something. I don't know. Remember when you were okay with genocide? And people responded the same way?
It was the genocide of all Pokemon. I just said enough's enough. I gotta end this.
No, I'm fine with that, honestly. That's okay.
I jumped in and I was like, I'm still doing this bit. Okay.
Time to die.
Pokemon. It's just like a Weedle there. Like, Weedle.
Interesting. You defaulted to Weedle. I would have defaulted to Caterpie.
I prefer Caterpie. I don't want to kill a Caterpie.
Okay, understood. Weedle, you don't care about it, but Caterpie is a little cuter.
Nah, I don't care about Caterpie. I don't, actually. I really dislike Weedle. I just think it's like, I don't know if I dislike it. It's just like, I am very nostalgic for Caterpie. Caterpie was Ash's Pokemon, and it was like a first Pokemon that I caught in Viridian Forest. And like, Weedle is just the inferior line, in my opinion.
Weedle is just like it's such a Gen 1 Pokemon where it's like, this worm thing. I mean, I know what it is. It's a larva with a point. Like, the point is what makes it a Pokemon. That little spike. Which is every Gen 1, many Gen 1 Pokemon.
It may be the first wasted Pokedex slot.
Weedle would not be okay in Generation 7.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think most people who defend Gen 1 are not necessarily even defending the Pokemon, but defending the feel and the artwork. Because there was like I watched a video on this that I thought was really interesting. It's just like, those original Ken Sugimori sketches feel very like, I'm in the field. That is reasonably a creature that I would see in real life.
True.
Whereas nowadays, it can feel a little bit more like, that's a toy, and I will see that on the shelf of my local toy store. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And even like when I'm designing Pokemon, that's how I'm designing. I'm like, this has to be a character, not like some kind of animal.
Yeah, I think the animal element of like having a seal creature that lives in this world and it's called Seal, like now it's like that's the most uninventive thing they could possibly have done, and maybe it's too uninventive, same as Zubat, whatever, but like at the time it's just like, seals exist as animals. The idea that you could add one to your collection and it could, like, it felt very organic and very like, that could be me. I could go out and I could do that. I did a poll recently. I did a State of the Community video, and Generation 1 is still like the most disliked generation, like, on that.
As games, yeah. I mean, like, they're definitely the most dated, and I don't see why a person that was born, let's say, 10 years ago would want to buy that, would want to play Pokemon Red and Blue.
No, I honestly, like, I don't want to play Red and Blue. I only ever want to play Yellow specifically because I'm like nostalgic for the sprite art, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the good stuff. This is my original. But if I hadn't played Yellow now, I'd probably never play them. I might give Fire Red Leaf Green a go. I'd probably just play Let's Go.
Oh yeah, Let's Go. If I'm the next time I play Kanto, it's gonna be Leaf Green. Unfortunately, because dude, the Sevi Islands really are one of my favorite things in Pokemon. Those felt like just it felt like real world, because like I don't know, I cannot remember the limit of like other places in the Pokemon world. Let's say Hoenn, even let's say Sinnoh, for example. I know the ends of Sinnoh. I know where it ends. I don't know. There isn't a place in Sinnoh that I'm like, whoa, that exists. I totally forgot that exists. While in the Sevi Islands, I forgot half of the places, and when I will replay it, I will feel like I'm exploring a new place. You will? It'll feel like endless. It'll feel endless. Like there's there's no end to this, and this is like the real world.
You will, and I'm going to tell you why as well. Is that I did that very thing last year. I was about this time last year. I was playing through Fire Red, and I was just watching episodes of Game of Thrones while playing through.
Okay.
And I like got to the Sevi Islands, and I was like, I have to find out what's on the other islands because I do not remember. And like I remember the vagueness of like, oh yeah, there's that thing and that thing and that thing, but I fully had that feeling of exploration and discovery. It was really great.
And especially since it's like added content, they really go ham with like the map design, like the route designs and like the designs of the locations, because they're way better than the ones in Kanto. because Kanto maps were designed in Generation 1, while the Sevii Islands were designed in Generation 3, where they're like, they know how to make routes way better than they did back then.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also like almost like post-game half of it, so it's like post-game routes are always like some of the coolest routes in any game. So all that combined makes them some of the best locations, in my opinion.
Also, it managed to tie into the nostalgia of the Orange Islands, and it managed to tie into the nostalgia of, like, there was a lot of things in the card game. There was the Southern Islands, which was just a very brief set, and all of these locations. I think what was really interesting about these locations in Generation 1, the Southern Islands, the Mewtwo's Island, where from the first movie, all of these locations, the Orange Islands, came with the promise of undiscovered Pokemon. True. Right? Yeah. Like, the Southern Island set in the card game, you got Togepi in it, you've got Slowking in it. The Orange Islands had Marill and, like, a bunch of others. And so I think the Sevii Island kind of evokes that same feeling of, like, what's out there that I don't yet know? It brings that with it. And naturally, there are some Johto and Hoenn Pokemon, I think mostly Johto Pokemon, available in those areas.
Yeah, they feel the most remote out of any place in Pokemon.
Yes.
And don't touch the remote just yet. We're not over. We actually are over. We're done. Have you ever seen, does that happen in the UK television where they say, don't touch that remote, don't touch that dial?
I wouldn't know. I haven't watched TV in years. I only watch YouTube.
So people haven't referred to a remote in a long time now that I think of it.
No.
Wait, are they called remotes in the UK?
Yeah.
TV, not called clicky bickies or something? I don't know.
No, I don't. Well, you'll find out. You come over here and I'll show you my clicky bickies.
Okay. Let's do it right now. Bye.